Yeah, I think we finally have a couple of sort of moderate temperature days, but by the time we get to this weekend, it's supposed to be almost 90 again.
Is that right?
Mhm.
Oh, all right.
Unfortunately.
Well, welcome. I'm attorney Peter Harbach, and standing next to me is attorney Sarah Kahns, and we're two of the attorneys at Hooper Law Office. Our office focuses entirely on estate planning and elder law. So we do wills and trusts and caregiver agreements and powers of attorney and things like that. So hopefully we've got what you consider good, helpful information for you and your family. As a reminder, as with all of our sessions, if you have questions, if you've registered for the class and you have questions and you're watching this through Zoom, please just type in your questions. We're going to reserve time at the end for any kind of questions that we receive. Sometimes we take them in between sort of topics as we talk, but we will make sure that we address anything that we get asked to the best of our ability before the session's over. So please, we like this to be as interactive as possible. Otherwise, it's just us talking at you. And our next class is going to be July 29th. Is that right? Mm-hmm. July 29th, which is next Wednesday, also at noon. And so everybody who did register should get a copy. You got to register to get this stuff. Should get a copy of the common caregiver mistakes. And that's part of the topics we're going to go through, but today's stuff is going to be a little bit more robust than that. So I suppose we ought to just jump into some content.
Well, that's what they're here for.
All right. So, a common concern that people have is the effect of some kind of ongoing long-term care on their life and their lifestyle and their finances, and how best to be able to do that if one of the priorities is staying at home. What are some of the considerations that the family might have of, okay, we have some kind of challenges, whether it's a cognitive impairment or mobility issues or need help with activities of daily living. So how do we set this up in such a way that we are following the wishes of the person that needs help, and also making sure that we're not running into future problems for them or the family or finances?
Just, really briefly touching on something that we did already go over in some of the previous sessions for this month on maintaining independence. The importance of empowering individuals to do things on your behalf if you're not capable of doing them on your own. When it comes to maintaining control over your care at home, you need to ensure that you have named individuals to be agents for maintaining financial matters and also for advocating for your good health, making healthcare decisions, that type of thing, HIPAA authorization, so that you have the people that you want to be able to access information, maintain kind of oversight over your care, ensure that the care that you're receiving is appropriate for you, that type of thing. These are things that we've talked about before, but it's just a good refresher in case you didn't join us for some of the prior sessions. Making sure that you have these documents in place are really important. You want that good base or foundation. So if things change for you, you have these basics that enable somebody else to step in and carry out the plan that you put in place yourself. So part of this is also having conversations with these individuals, talking to them about what it is that you want. If your goal or priority is staying at home and receiving your care at home, you need to tell them that that is what you want. And then you need to talk to them about how you've planned to be able to do that. The cost of care at home and how that actually functions or how that works. How you financially planned for it, what tools you have in place, and how they can get information about that if you've worked with advisors to prepare for it. So these are all about making sure that you have information available to them. When I do planning with clients, where this is part of what we plan around, I give them things that they fill out that provides actual written information about, this is what I would envision for like my ideal type of care, either in home or if I have to transition out of my home, this is what I would prefer. So these are all things that are important to talk to them about, talk to other people about, and have a plan for, so what you want can actually be done at some point in the future.
It's hard to implement a game plan if there is no game plan.
It is very difficult.
So a little bit of thought on the front end. One concrete example of the type of thing Sarah was talking about here is if it would be your preference, if you were to, have need help or lose capacity to get your care at home, you can actually instruct your healthcare power of attorney that, hey, it is my strong preference to receive care at home if at all possible. If that's a reasonable way for me to get my care, I'd prefer to stay at home rather than transition into a facility. And so you can set up those types of guidelines so that not just to communicate the information, and even if you have those appropriate provisions in the healthcare power of attorney, that's not a substitute for the conversation. I mean, you really want to make sure that they're hearing it right from you. But it being written in that healthcare power of attorney is also a way for them to be able to communicate what your wishes were to other individuals who might be interested in, what's your situation and what your preferences might have been, because you may not be in a position to communicate those at the time. And so the healthcare power of attorney can say, oh yeah, see, mom wanted to make sure she was receiving care at home here, and she even said so in the healthcare power of attorney. That was her instructions to me. And so I'm doing my best to be able to make sure that her wishes are fulfilled. Additionally, if you have any kind of religious affiliation and you have specific healthcare wishes or needs, you can communicate those in a manner that's consistent with your religious beliefs, so that, again, you're getting the right kind of care that you would have wanted, but it is also, paying attention to your religious beliefs. So, a little bit of pre-planning goes a long way towards making sure that the people are in a good position to help you, but also know how you want to be helped. Critical stuff there. And it's not difficult to do. I mean, if everybody could just think of these things on their own, we wouldn't so much have a job. Hey, if I knew what I needed and knew how to implement it. But, again, encourage you to talk to an attorney who's experienced in these kinds of things and make sure that you've got these provisions in place with the powers people need and the right types of, documents related to your situation and beliefs.
So usually when we're talking people through the creation of these plans, we're talking about kind of what their end game is. It's where is it that you see yourself in this situation or that situation? And then we're working backwards from there. How can we make sure that we're able to accommodate what your preferences really are? And what tools are we going to use to make sure that continues to happen? With care at home, we're going to look at, have you pursued or do you have options available when it comes to insurance? Or how much would be appropriate in your situation? What other benefits might be available to you to utilize to create that situation? You need to know what is out there that you can use. When I talk to my clients about this, I analogize it to turning on faucets. You have a regular amount of income that's coming into you every month, and you can use that to pay for whatever ongoing care you need. When that ongoing cost of care gets more than what your regular income is, that's where you start depleting what you have in savings. And that's where people start to get worried that they're going to end up running through what they have. So do you have other faucets that you can turn on to increase what you have coming in every month so that you're not depleting your other resources? And that's where we're looking at, do you have insurance available that you can turn on because you have this ongoing health need? Long-term care insurance, there are the true long-term care insurance. There's also hybrid policies that have a life insurance component to them. So there's a lot of different products out there. It's good to talk to a financial advisor if you have a relationship with one to see what options are available to you. It's good to be informed and to make informed decisions about what you really have open to you at this point. The amount that you really need is based off of what type of care you're trying to create within your home. If insurance is either not an option to you or it's just not something you're interested in, then you need to look at what other options are there. There's benefits for veterans and spouses of veterans that we've talked about a couple times before, and we'll talk about a little bit today too. If that's a faucet that you can turn on, that can make a huge difference in being able to afford your care at home, because you turn that on, now you have additional money coming in. Now you're not depleting your resources, so you can afford to stay at home without it necessarily wiping out what you have in your savings. So you also want to make sure that you're balancing out the situation between you and your spouse. If both of you need care versus just one of you needing care, that's going to be very different. So you want to make sure that you are preparing for different scenarios, and that the things that are important to you are able to be maintained as your health situation may change. So maybe a little bit about veteran planning or benefits would be a good thing to discuss.
Sure. We got one comment regarding a previous topic, which was in regards to making sure the wishes are laid out in the healthcare power of attorney. And the comment was that it really helps ensure family members don't fight about how to care for mom and dad. And completely agree with that comment. Because if everybody's on the same page and everybody has access to sort of a reference document of, well, this is what they wanted, well, that really helps, maintain harmony amongst the kids, so that their separate opinions about what they think mom or dad might have wanted in the circumstance are irrelevant, because you've got concrete evidence of, well, this is what they said they want. And so, if that was a product of a well thought out overall plan, well, then, it's much more difficult to argue that, you're not following their wishes.
You really want to put your kids in a position where they're carrying out your wishes and they're following through on decisions you have made, rather than putting them in a position where they're making decisions for you, at least as much as possible. Your kids can accept decisions from you. They have a harder time, especially in times of stress, accepting decisions from each other.
So in regards to what Sarah was describing with turning on different faucets, with long-term care insurance, that can be a wonderful thing if you either presently have it or you're still at an age where it's affordable and you're still insurable. If you're already 85, probably not going to be able to invest in long-term care insurance, because the insurance companies, of course, know that they're not going to collect premiums from you for very long before they potentially have to start paying out on a policy. But you should all know that if it's referred to as long-term care insurance, that means that there is a benefit for paying for care at home. And so that a lot of people don't realize that long-term care insurance pays not just for a nursing home or a CBRF or assisted living, it can also provide payments for the person getting assistance at home. So long as you meet the criteria of the policy, which very commonly is written as either cognitive impairment or needs assistance with a couple of activities of daily living. Now, that's not every policy in the universe, but I mean, that's generally the way that they tend to be written. So if you have a policy, make sure you know what you have, not just in terms of what are the parameters of what it covers, but also what are the criteria for me to actually be able to put in a claim on this policy. And for married couples, a lot of times, if they bought a policy together, if one person starts putting in a claim, that might actually shut off the premium payments for the other person. So these are things that you want to make sure you know about and have looked into if you already have a policy. I mean, know what you bought and how to be able to use it. But you just want to make sure that you know that these policies can be used to pay for care at home in many different circumstances. And so you don't necessarily have to transition the person right away.
I had a family that came to me to help with an administration of an estate after a parent had passed away. The other parent was still living, but they were declining in health themselves. They had invested in a long-term care insurance policy, and the premiums, they had continued paying them, and they didn't realize that there was a term in the policy that allowed the premium payments to stop once one of the individuals or one of the parents had passed away. So the family was just sort of voluntarily continuing to pay premiums on the policy when they didn't have to.
And the company didn't decide to say, hey, wait a minute.
No, they didn't.
We don't need all that money from you.
They did not refuse the money.
Shocking.
So it's surprising what these policies sometimes say, and they're not always written in ways that are obvious. The
policies have changed over the years, so even the agent who you're presently working with, they might have not have been selling the same policy that you or your parents bought 15 years ago. So they may not still be as, aware of the different parameters of it. So somebody needs to look into these things. And, I've found that some of my clients, they're just not real comfortable reading all the legalese of contract terms and everything, where they're really going to internalize and understand their policy. So they need some help with that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. This is really one of the reasons why I strongly encourage my clients to take their kids to their advisors and introduce them. We did a follow-up meeting with that family and brought their insurance agent in, and she was able to get everything figured out. The money was returned to the family, and the surviving spouse had long-term care insurance that was basically free, for the rest of their life. So that they ended up using and needing. So it worked out very, very well because they had an agent that could help.
And that brings up actually a great point of incorporating the kids or whoever your trusted agents might be is critically important, because you might understand your own long-term care insurance policy perfectly. However, if it's your policy, by definition, that means that it's going to start paying out when you've had a health event. At that time, are you still going to be in a position to fully understand and communicate how this policy works? Maybe yes, maybe no. But having your trusted agent in a place where they understand the policy, so they know when and how to put in a claim, can end up making sure that the family is able to hold on to as much funds as possible and aren't just foregoing this benefit that you've paid probably for years for by not putting in the claim in a timely manner.
Yeah, they can't turn on faucets that they don't know are there.
Yeah, good point. And so we actually got a question in regards to one of the things that you mentioned. Do we know anything about hybrid long-term care insurance? And the answer is yes. There are many, many, many types of hybrid policies out there. So I can't say without looking at a particular policy how any one individual policy works. But as an example, just generally speaking, a hybrid policy is a financial product like you're buying an annuity or a a life insurance policy. And basically it will have a rider in there that says, okay, you've bought $200,000 of life insurance, just as an example. And if you need long-term care prior to your death, maybe it pays up to $400,000 worth of long-term care benefit. So it's just a random example that those numbers aren't meaningful to anybody in particular. I'm just saying that I've seen that type of thing in policies where it has a death benefit. That's what makes it a hybrid policy. It pays out at death, or it's a financial product. It's not just long-term care insurance that you either put a claim in or you maybe never needed care and don't put a claim in. It's a financial product. So, hey, I've got this $200,000 life insurance policy, which is going to pay out $200,000 to my family if I get hit by a bus. But if instead I need care, I can start drawing out the value of this policy earlier based on the criteria in the policy. So that's one example of what a hybrid product might look like. For some people, they find that to be a good solution if they're very reluctant to invest in a long-term care insurance policy because they think, boy, what if I never need to go into a care facility? I'll have paid those premiums and not gotten anything back from it. I mean, frankly, it's the same situation for your car insurance or your homeowner's insurance. I mean, I don't pay my premiums in the hopes of having to put a claim in and getting any money back. I do that to insure against the possibility of me getting in a car accident or my house burning down or something like that. So you can view long-term care insurance that same way of, boy, I hope I don't have to put in a claim on this. But, for some people, they're more comfortable knowing, hey, if I invest in this, there's at least a death benefit to the family if I don't need care during my lifetime. Okay, so that's a little bit about the insurance and the ability to kind of fund this care at home. And we like it because, honestly, money talks. And so if you're going to afford good care, it's nice where you've shifted the burden of that expense onto the insurance companies, because those companies all have deep pockets and can afford your care for however long you might need care. But it is an investment that you have to make. And this is an objective analysis by us because we're not selling you long-term care insurance, so we don't get anything by telling you to do that.
Yes, we do not benefit from any kind of long-term care insurance sales or anything like that. We've just seen it used by families in a variety of situations.
Very successfully.
Where it's been helpful. And honestly, one of the areas where I think it really helps the most is it gives the family members that care about you peace of mind that, oh, we've got these tools that we can use. So I can make sure that this person I care about is taken care of in a manner that I find acceptable. And that's really the biggest worry that a lot of families come in with is, how do I make sure that I keep control over the care and that the care is appropriate based on what I think is appropriate for this person, based on what they have communicated to me in the past. And money is just like every other industry, you are able to, have more control over your circumstances if you're able to pay for what you want. And that's what you get out of insurance.
So if that appears to be an appropriate investment, we'd encourage you to talk to your long-term care insurance provider, which could be an insurance agent or financial advisor. Hopefully they're very experienced in long-term care insurance. We found that some advisors more do it as a bit of a sideline, so they might kind of understand a little bit about their products they have available to them, but maybe don't know how to use it all that well. So hopefully whoever you might actually purchase one from, you find is just very comfortable in talking about how the stuff works, how it applies to your particular situation.
There are some types of insurance where you actually get benefits under Medicaid because of the type of policy it is. So I'm making sure that you understand what options you have or how it could impact your eligibility down the road. Some agents, if they don't deal with it real commonly, will bring in another agent that kind of specializes in that within their company. So if you have an agent that wants to bring in somebody else, don't hesitate to let them do that. They're just trying to give you the best advice possible.
So if you're going to pay for care at home, you should understand that if you're going to use a third-party service, like an at-home care agency, on average, I find that in this area, you're probably looking somewhere in the $23 to $25 an hour range. So there's going to be a little bit of variance on that depending on the circumstances, but by and large, what I just said is going to be in the ballpark of what I'd expect you to get quoted for third-party at-home care services. Additionally, there's a lot of family members who have, quit their jobs or are spending a lot of time helping brother, sister, mom, dad, whoever it is that needs the care. And so it might also be appropriate for that person to be getting paid for all of the time they have invested in providing that care. And so there's different ways to go about this, but you need to understand that low levels of care can be pretty cheap to get care at home. But some people think, I want my care at home because it'll definitely be cheaper. And that's not always the case, because if you need, kind of round the clock supervision and care and, converting the home into a safe environment because of significant needs on your end, well, then that can actually become incredibly costly, because you might be paying $23 an hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's going to run north of 15 grand a month. You can get into a nursing home for cheaper than that. So it's not always that at-home care is going to be the cheap option. Sometimes it's the best option. Sometimes it's not appropriate, but it's not always just necessarily going to be the cheap option. So you need to recognize that in order to make good decisions about how you're going to get your care in the future. But I'd mentioned, okay, if you're paying a third-party agency, they're going to just quote you something and that's what you're going to pay them. But if you're paying a child, there's some pitfalls in just handing the kid a check for, hey, thanks, son.
Unfortunately, we see a lot of mistakes happening when you are trying to pay for care with a child or family member providing that care. And a lot of it has to do with appropriate documentation. Especially if you have more significant care needs in the future where you're trying to access benefits like Medicaid or maybe benefits under the VA. If you don't have appropriate documentation showing that the amount that you're paying to this child is a payment for care, not a gift of money to them, you're going to run into some issues.
And that it's fair market value.
Yes.
Not just, yeah, this was a payment for care. I gave them $20,000 for helping me out last week.
Right.
That's not, that kind of gamesmanship's not going to fly.
You also can't do like balloon payments at the very end of life, or I'm going to give you $1 million to take care of me for the rest of my life, no matter how long that is. I mean, just, different things that are, arrangements like that. You have to do hourly. It has to be reasonable. The person who's receiving the payment has to claim it as income and pay taxes on it. So, I mean, this is income to the person. So you have to make sure that that's dealt with appropriately as well.
And one of the questions we get in this context all the time is, well, how is anybody going to know? Well, if you need to transition and get funding, whether it's at home for your care, or if you transition into a facility and you apply for family care or the Medicaid program, or if you're expecting any assistance in paying for care, one of the parameters that they have on these applications, depending on which program you're applying for, is VA has a 3-year look back period, and Medicaid or family care or the IRIS program, they have a 5-year look back period. And so they're going to see and be able to go through all of the financial records for you and what you've done with your money over the previous 3 to 5 years. And they can scrutinize this and cause penalties if you haven't followed their rules leading up to you applying for the assistance. And so that's a huge deal, because if you run out of funds and they're going to assess a penalty for not following their rules about how this stuff is supposed to work, well, then you have a period of time where you're both out of money, you have a care cost, and they're saying, we're not going to help you because you've got this penalty period. So if you gave away or improperly transferred, say, $85,000 over the course of the last 3 years, they're going to say, okay, for about the next 10 months, you're not going to have any help from us. You're now completely out of money. Good luck paying for your care. And so that can cause a huge, obvious financial burden on the family. So you have to get this stuff in place proactively. It's not because you intended to do something wrong or not follow their rules. You just hadn't looked into their rules until you needed their help and didn't realize, boy, all this stuff I did in previous years has an effect on whether or not I'm going to get your help. And now I can't shove the toothpaste back in the tube.
And there's also things that you can use this for to your benefit. I mean, we haven't really talked too much about VA, but benefits under the VA, you can use what it is that you're paying to your family members, your loved ones, your kids, to help make you eligible for some of these programs. So they will help you pay for this to your kids. And I've used this in situations where maybe we have kids helping to provide care and the kids are retiring early, going down to part-time, taking a leave of absence. There's a lot of hours that they're contributing to this because they want to take care of their parents, and they're having trouble accepting money from their parents in exchange for this. The parents are having trouble accepting the care for free because they know that financially they could be working. If we have some additional help from the VA, making sure the parent can afford this care, it makes it a little easier for everybody to, because then the parents can afford it, the kids will accept it, and we can keep the kids the kids providing care in the home. They can financially afford to continue providing the care for a longer period of time. And the fact that they're not able to work as much in exchange for that is okay. The fact that they're getting compensated for it is a good thing. And it also helps maintain good family dynamics and relationships, because it's not like they're doing all of this and for nothing and nobody else is helping.
We hadn't mentioned a whole lot about the VA, and we teach entire classes just on this VA pension benefit. But basically, if you're a veteran or the surviving spouse of a veteran, there potentially might be a pension benefit that can help pay for long-term care expenses. There's a bunch of information about this on our website, which is hooperlawoffice.com. There's a whole group of articles and things that we've written that describe how the VA pension benefit works. We also have a lot of videos and other things. We teach, like I said, entire classes on this topic, because how to use the VA correctly is somewhat complicated, but it can be a wonderful resource of additional funds. As you would term it, sort of a great faucet to be able to turn on if you need it.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I want to bring up, because we're about out of time, is if you're getting care at home, but there's any possibility of needing to transition into a facility in the future, a lot of times the families think, okay, we're going to pay for care at home for as long as absolutely possible until the money completely runs out, because that's what we prefer, is getting care at home. And then when we're out of money, transition into a facility. I'd caution against that kind of mentality, in that, as we kind of described before, money talks. And so you're going to have better choice of which facility you're going to be able to transition to if you can show that facility that you can pay out of pocket for a period of time in order to get in there. Because if you have no funds, if you've just provided care at home and required the care to be at home, run completely out of funds, then you're at the mercy of who will take me in. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm qualified for assistance in paying for care, but who will take, the lesser money to help me out, to let me in?
You want to make sure that you can afford to get into the facility of your choosing, right? Yeah. I mean, I've had a number of appointments where they started with the family member saying, we don't want to start talking about transitioning into care because there's still some amount of money. And so that until that runs out, we're paying for care at home. And by the end of the meeting, it's how can we possibly stretch this into an amount that the facility will accept, because we're almost out of options if we don't start looking into this now. So it's important to understand how this works through each stage so that you can
time that transition.
Yeah, so you can transition with control. Our next topic is going to be about maintaining control while transitioning outside of the home. So we will get a little bit more into that. But this is a good sort of preface on what we'll be discussing.
Yeah, because that's basically next week's topic, isn't it?
That is.
Yeah. So we'll leave it on that cliffhanger, I guess. I think we've covered the various questions and comments that we've received. So hopefully everybody who attended found this to be a useful way to spend a little time with us. If anything that we talked about relates to your particular circumstances in such a way that you need to follow up, please contact us. We do initial consultations free of charge, and hopefully we can diagnose what the situation is and whether we might be able to help. So please, everybody, take care, stay safe. We appreciate your time. Next week's class is Wednesday, July 29th, also at noon. So thanks again, and everybody take care.